I can only take so many pictures of cars, so the other night I loaded up some Acros 100, and those are the pictures that you just saw. I'm trying to stay creative during this time, and I'm lucky enough that I have a girlfriend that will take pictures with me and just be a model whenever I want. So props to her, but basically I shot these with Acros 100, and I had a tripod and an LED light. It's actually the same light that I use for scanning my negatives. And I just tried to be creative. We had some soap, and I just wanted to give some texture to the pictures. And I scanned them in, and I didn't really like the way that they looked. I was kind of tied down to the tripod, and I was holding the light on my own because I don't have a stand for it. Eventually I might upgrade my equipment, but the next day I decided to load up some HP5 and push it to 3200. And the reasoning for doing that is so I can move around and shoot handheld. And I also wanted to use the window light in my office instead of using artificial light, because the artificial light was a little more contrast than I wanted, and with some other equipment I probably could have cut down on that contrast, but I don't have that much equipment and I'm just working with what I got. As you can see in the video, I might be looking on the side of my RZ every once in a while, and that's because when you focus close to your subject, there is a scale that tells you how you're supposed to compensate on your exposure, because the lens actually gets further away from the actual film. So you can see this in the video. There's a couple times when my reading was 1/250th of a second, and I was focusing as close as possible, so I would have to actually make my shutter speed 1/125th of a second just to compensate for that lack of light. So keep that in mind when you're actually focusing at close distances, because you might be accidentally underexposing your shots. A lot of people don't know if they want to push their film because of the increase in grain and the increase in contrast, but a lot of that depends on how you agitate your film. And the way I agitate is, if it calls for 10 minutes in developing time, the first 30 seconds I will agitate like this, and then every minute after that I will do 3 inversions, just gentle inversions like that, and it seems to work really well for me. If you were to go crazy and do it super fast and shake it up, your contrast would be a lot more prevalent and the grain would be a lot more coarse. But I'm not a big fan of grain, and I'd rather have a flatter scan to begin with, and I can add contrast later in post. So I just prefer to do really gentle inversions every minute.
Just say the most bizarre thing. I'm like, my whole face so be like white and away from my eyes.
And you can really see the difference between the Acros 100 being the speed of the film, and the HP5 push to 3200. And I really like the HP5 push because it kind of gave that soap on the face some nice texture, and you can't really tell the difference between the soap and the grain in the picture, which I kind of like. this specific shot right here, I just wanted to have her hand in focus and then the rest out of focus. So I metered for her hand, and I actually opened up the lens to 5.6 because I wanted, on 2.8, it was just a big blur in the background, and I wanted to be able to actually see the subject in the background a little bit. So I metered, and it was 1/125th of a second. And like I said earlier, you had to compensate because the close focus, and I had to stop it down to 1/60th of a second for shutter speed. And that was the final result for that. Doing these types of videos helps me stay creative. It helps me stay on point with shooting when there's not a lot to shoot. I can only take so many pictures of cars and buildings and houses and stuff like that around the neighborhood. And until these times get back to normal and I can start shooting with other people, I'm gonna have to do this stuff to make me stay creative and make sure I'm keeping up on technique and just practicing as much as I can. Because every time you do a shoot like this, you learn stuff, you make mistakes, you move on, and you're better for it. So I hope you learned something from this. If you have any questions about anything, let me know. If you have questions on Instagram, let me know. I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you for subscribing. I just reached 1,000 subscribers. That's way more than I ever thought I was gonna get. So let me know what you wanna see in the next video, and I'll see you then.